Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
It's 2 hours till kickoff here today, and that means the Tailgate crew is here to help you guys get set up for today's college football action. Campus to Canton gang here, as always. Chris Moxley, Colin Decker, and Nick Ian Allen. Austin here leading things, hopefully. A big week in college football here, and we're 3/4 of the way through the season. We've got a lot of important games from a real football perspective, but playoffs are coming up here too, guys, if you're playing some college fantasy. So we're going to help you guys with all of that here today. If you guys want to call in, link should be in the description here on the page. And as always, if you have some start-sit questions, guys, please let us know. We'll try to get to all of them here live. Guys, we've had some games already. And I see, Chris, I like the sweatshirt down there, by the way. Very, very nice. You've got the limited edition Western Kentucky positional sweatshirt there. So very, very nice. All right. What do we want to talk about first here, guys? Actually, I think I know what we have to talk about here first. Anybody here watch that Charlotte game last night? Charlotte FAU?
Oh yeah.
Colin, did you watch it?
I did.
Mm-hmm. Did you actually? Okay.
Yeah, I watched the first half and probably most of the third quarter.
That was your homework for the night, so I'm glad that you checked in. Did anybody notice, Charlotte's coach, his attire he got going on? What do we think of this? Is this a plus EV move to wear the T-shirt that is clearly very old with the sleeves cut off?
He looks like a suburban dad. Like So for those who don't know, it's like this old ripped up white shirt. Like he cut the sleeves off himself, I'm sure. And he's been wearing this his whole career, by the way. Like it's not just a Charlotte thing. It's not just last week thing. He did it when he was at St. Francis. Like this dude just rocks cut off sleeves all the time.
And shorts.
And shorts. Yeah. I mean, the energy that Biff Poggi brings is awesome to Charlotte football. I mean, we had Club Lit before. Biff Poggi is hired, and it's awesome. I love it. Love it. And you guess what? When you're a millionaire hedge fund manager, you can do whatever you want.
It's just mind-boggling to me. It looks like he's going to go out and cut the grass.
It looks like he's one of those guys that hangs out in the gym like way too long. Like he just like going from machine to machine to machine. That's what I get. The vibe I get.
Fair enough. What do you get, Nick, from before you talk about real football here?
I mean, it's definitely it's like Mox said, it's not necessarily new. So I guess I've gotten used to it a little bit. But it's definitely different, and Biff Poggi is definitely a different kind of guy.
There's a picture. Thanks, Will. You're the man. Look at that. Look at those guns.
I need to catch up on it a little bit, actually.
Is he wearing two watches?
It does look like two watches. Yeah, it looks like an Apple Watch.
He's got his nice watch on his left hand and the Apple Watch on his right.
Well, so he can flex like Shador with the one, and then the other one,
And there's some sort of note to himself maybe written on his hand. I don't know. But
play better defense against FAU, please.
There's an ESPN Plus show, like one of those where they embed and are there with the team. I watched the first, I think, couple of episodes. So I'm sure there've been some. I think it's a weekly one. I need to catch up, but I'm generally a sucker for those sort of things. But he's got an interesting story. I mean, as Mark said, he's a hedge fund manager. Did he start the program at St. Francis or there were a couple of schools in Maryland where he had just incredible success for a long time. And then, of course, he most recently before Charlotte was at Michigan, which has been in the news recently. I don't know if anybody's heard about that, but just a pretty interesting story all around. And yeah, he's gotten to a point in his life where he's in charge now and can do whatever he wants basically. And this is what he wants to be, and good for him, I guess.
Man, I hope that I get to that point here at C2C someday that I can just wear whatever I want on this show. That's the real goal here. Well, it didn't help Charlotte on the field at all last night. They lose 38-16. Well, it was a little closer than that for a large majority of this, but FAU pulls away late.
Onside kick in the third quarter for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, that was kind of the death knell, I think. I don't know exactly.
And then Biff Poggi going for it on what, 4th and 20? Sorry, I had the under in this game, so I'm thinking about all the plays that ruined it.
That's the play. You took the under in this game and not like the FAU 3.5. I loved that. I don't know.
I did too, and Vegas scared me away with the movement, and I took the under because it got steamed up by one individual, so that they could slam the under, and I was like, oh well, I'll hop on that side, and yeah, did not cash for those curious. Wasn't really close.
Any overarching fantasy takeaways from this game? I mean, LeJontay Wester for FAU, their best wide receiver, just continued doing what he's been doing pretty much all season. I believe he was leading the NCAA in receiving, or the FBS in receiving coming into this one. 10 catches, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. The second touchdown was a pretty freaking nice catch in the back of the end zone. I don't know, any large scale takeaways here, Chris, Colin, Nick, anybody?
I mean, he's clearly the best player on the field. He was a shoestring tackle away from returning punt for a touchdown. Just one of those guys where you have to get him the ball as much as possible, and credit to Tom Herman and that coaching staff. They've done that. They feed him. I think he leads the nation in targets. I believe he's now having played this game, so he's got a game on some of the players closest to him, but he's now leading the nation in receptions by 10. So just he's clearly the best player on the field, and credit to FAU for taking advantage of that and getting him the ball as much as possible in a variety of ways.
Is he an NFL player? Colin Felix wants to know in the chat.
Is he an NFL player? I could see him on the back end of a roster, maybe like a 7th round pick or like a UDFA kind of a guy at this point. He has another year left, so I could see him transferring up and trying to do the G5 to P5 jump. But at this point in time, I don't think he's anybody that'll make any sort of an impact on your roster for fantasy purposes at the NFL level.
He's really tiny.
Do you agree with that, Chris?
He's really tiny. He's like 167, and he's like lanky too. He's like not short. He's probably like almost 6 foot, 5'10", 5'11", and like he's super skinny. So maybe he adds a little bit of weight, but he's a good player for college. I don't necessarily think that he's an NFL guy. Maybe at the very end of a roster, or a guy that goes between the practice squad and whatnot. But I don't think he's an impact player at the NFL level.
Stranger things have happened, but I wouldn't bank on it as of right now. I think the bigger question will be, you guys said he does have a year of eligibility left, correct? If he wants it, do you think he takes it, or do you think he tries to leave?
He's going to have like 1,200 yards this year. I mean, I would imagine he tries to capitalize and leave.
That we're seeing more and more of that. It sounds like so. Wouldn't surprise me. Takes the Des Walker, Zachary Franklin route. So obviously it works out for some, not for others. But I could certainly see that as a scenario where he looks for an opportunity to move up and see if he can sustain this level of success and production at a Power 5 level.
Would be really interesting for sure.
He's also already
Power 5 level.
He's already 21. I think he'll be at 22 at draft time. So he's already getting up there in age a little bit as well. So you're gonna have he's an older prospect.
Yeah. All right, a couple other games here, real quick to touch on that already took place here this week. Syracuse. They looked pretty good at the beginning of the year. I know they were pretty thin and they've had some injury issues here, but I mean, getting blown out in this one by Virginia Tech. Garrett Schrader struggles. LaQuint Allen struggles. I think those are kind of the two big names that we are interested in there for fantasy. Are those guys kind of players to avoid starting if you don't like necessarily have to the rest of the year?
They have a tough schedule, right? The rest of the season.
Good question. They play Pitt, so obviously. No, they have Boston. They have Boston College, Pitt, Georgia Tech, and Wake Forest. So no, they actually do not have a tough schedule.
That's great. Yeah, they just went through the gauntlet with Clemson, UNC, Florida State, Virginia Tech, apparently. So Syracuse is really beat up right now. Like, they have a lot of injuries on that team. I don't know how many they got back this week. Nick probably knows better than I do, but I mean, they've really, really been hurt. I think you can play the offensive players, but that defense is nowhere near as good as it could be if they were full health. And they had transfers out this offseason too. It was like, I don't know that they've given up. That's a good question in the chat, but there's a lot of attrition from last year's team.
Yeah, and there were some injuries on Thursday night as well. The secondary, a couple of guys left the game. One I know for sure didn't return. So they're a team that's already pretty thin. And you mentioned some of the transfers that they lost. So it's a situation to monitor because there definitely were. I mean, there was I believe there was a thing going around the last 24 however many hours. Eric Dungy, the former Syracuse quarterback, who kind of made some noise a little bit with his view on whether or not the team was looking like it had quit. So there's some concern there, and it seems like Dino Babers has been on and off the hot seat pretty frequently over the last few years. So it's definitely a situation where if they drop what should be a manageable game at home on a Friday night against Boston College next week, they're in danger, I think, and definitely could be a team that partly because the depth is just not there, but also maybe time's running out just for Babers, and could certainly see them quitting. And Thursday was definitely a step in that direction. Didn't look very good.
Do we think this gets any better next year? I mean, Schrader's going to be gone. I don't know. I have a hard time. I don't know who their backup quarterback's going to be. Is it Del Rio Wilson? Has he been operating as the backup there? I don't think he's very good. Like, Syracuse might just not be very good next year either.
What really stinks that they lost out on Lenora Sellers, huh?
Yeah, they
had him. The freshman in South Carolina had him for the majority of the cycle before he kind of blew up late there.
Yeah. So. What's your upside at a university like Syracuse? Like, can you win 8 games a year at Syracuse consistently? Probably not. I mean, if you go bowling, I think that's a win. It's like they're gonna probably fire Dino Babers, if not this year, next year. I just don't know what the upside at Syracuse is. It's a tough place to win.
Yeah, not a lot of local talent there, really in the Northeast at all. I mean, you get to go down to PA, Ohio, and then you're competing against some pretty good schools for those guys there. So yeah, tough job there all around. The other big game here we've already seen: Georgia Southern, Georgia State, a rivalry. Nick, I listened to the CFB Winning Edge pod this week because you're getting some shots in there.
Yeah, Xavier, our Georgia State alum, and definitely drops a few wheeze on on his Georgia State thoughts.
I liked it. Because he almost has like his Tomlinisms on the show that he his phrases that he'll go back to sometimes. And then talking about this, he just was like, Georgia State, Georgia State.
You should have seen him on the group text during the game. He was not happy.
I'm sure that got progressively more entertaining, at least as the game went on there, because Georgia Southern pulled this one out 44-27. Probably a little bit of an unexpected result just based on, I know what your numbers were saying coming into the week, Nick, and kind of really, I mean, these teams from a talent perspective aren't too dissimilar. But Davis Brin has himself another nice game. Jalen White at running back there continues his pretty good season. And Georgia Southern has a couple of really, really good receivers that have been, very productive this year. Derwin Burgess, Caleb Hood, and some other names there too that aren't too shabby. Any large scale takeaways from this game, Nick?
Well, so my main disappointment, like coming into the game when we were talking about it on the show earlier this week, one of the things I was thinking about most is the quarterback battle, and would I prefer or trust Davis Brin versus Darren Granger, and at the time I really leaned toward Granger, but he struggled, didn't look good, made some bad mistakes. I mean, that pick six in the fourth quarter, when it really looked like Georgia State had a chance to sneak back into the game. They were trending well in the fourth, and he just threw just a horrible pick six to a linebacker just on a out in the flat, and could see it coming a mile away. So that I think is a little bit of a takeaway. Just that Granger had been, in my opinion, really solid. Somebody you could kind of build around a Georgia State team that has exceeded expectations so far this year. But right now, he's looking a little shaky. They've had some injuries in the receiving core. Marcus Carroll looked great and really looks like one of the most productive running backs in college football right now. But we were, this was a projection where we had Georgia State as a very slight favorite, and they were obviously didn't come out on the right side. So had this one pegged wrong, maybe from the start. But the biggest disappointment was how Granger played.
All right, I think that about covers that whole game. Let's that was good. That was good. Let's go talk about some of our rankings here for today. You got to make some sit decisions. I know this is a tough week for buys if you're heavily leaning on LSU players specifically, as one or two of my teams have this year. It's going to be an interesting week. Quarterback, I think a lot of names here that we would expect to see on the week. Drake May is our top projected QB on the week by actually about 5 points, which surprised me a little bit there. They get Georgia Tech. Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma there is second. They take on Kansas. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, takes on Vanderbilt at 3. Tyler Van Dyke, we'll see if he plays this week. Sounds like he probably will, but did miss out on last week's contest, and they have Virginia. Michael Pratt at 5. The Tulane has Rice today. Jordan McLeod been coming on lately for James Madison. He's at 6. Shedeur Sanders, Colorado has UCLA at 7. Donovan Smith, Houston's quarterback, at 8. Talia Tagovailoa at 9. Maryland QB, they take on Northwestern. Jordan Travis, FSU. They have Wake Forest today. Sam Hartman, Notre Dame, they have Pitt. UTSA's Frank Harris at 12. They take on East Carolina. Joey Aguilar, the App State QB, at 13. And they have Southern Mississippi. And then Carter Bradley, South Alabama QB, and they have UL as their opponent today. Nick, I usually come to you first. No Caleb Williams on the list this week. Any other names that jump out as missing or maybe too high here for you?
Yeah, that's a surprise. Michael Penix as well, not on the list. The way that I do projections takes weights fairly heavily. The last 3 years of head coach and play caller history. So guys like Caleb Williams and Michael Penix, even though we do make adjustments for this week's opponents, it's not nearly as big as the week to week adjustments that the rankings on the site do. So I've still got Caleb Williams in my top 5. I think Cal's a decent matchup, even though the last 2 weeks obviously have not gone well. And I kind of like the Penix matchup against Stanford as well. I think there's certainly some opportunity for him to get right, especially when it sounds like Jalen McMillan's going to give it a go today. So that receiving core is closer to full strength than we've seen the last couple of weeks. Yeah,
I actually agree with you there on Penix. When we go to the wide receivers here, I think all 3 of those guys are in the top 12. Not necessarily saying that they're all going to be top 12 on the day, but I think they all have a chance there. Colin, any thoughts on the QB rankings this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think noting that Penix and Williams are absent is definitely notable, but have had a couple of poor performances the past couple of weeks. Not necessarily poor, but down from what we had expected before, which probably accounts for why they're not on there. I know that on the site that accounts for the 3 most recent games, like pretty heavily. But the quarterback that is not on the list, and I don't think it's a wrong exclusion, but it's somebody that I am looking at pretty heavily this week, is Jalen Rayner, the quarterback out of Arkansas State. He put up 2 40-point games early in the year, but the last 2 games, like 21 fantasy points. But he's got the perfect get-right matchup this week against ULM. They're just abysmal in passing defense, both second worst in both passing success rate and passing paper play on the defensive side of the ball. So I think we could see a big game out of him. So not a wrong call to not have him on the list, but definitely somebody I like this week.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it here. It looks like he's about 2 points short of making this list projected on the day. So not terribly far off here. And there are, maybe 10 to 15 QBs all in that range, including Caleb Williams, that are really, really close, but not quite there. I see some start sit questions here in the chat. Chris, Jack Plummer today or Drew Allar? Penn State gets Indiana, and Louisville has Duke, I believe.
And I got myself with the mute. I didn't do it last week. It was pretty good. Drew Allar. For me, Duke's defense is pretty legit. I think that's going to be a low-scoring game. Kind of, I have Louisville winning, but kind of, and they're getting Jawar Jordan back as well. Sounds like. So I think
and probably no Riley Leonard. Is that your read on that game as well? Which I do think, doesn't necessarily change the defensive matchup, but probably changes the flow of the game slightly. Not that Duke was ever a threat to put up 40 or anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think Riley Leonard's playing, even though he's a game time decision. Although I said that last week and he played, and then he got hurt again and looked like crap because he couldn't run. So if he does go, probably going to look bad because he re-injured himself and can't run. And when Riley Leonard can't run, Riley Leonard turns into like Christian Hackenberg. That's kind of mean.
I actually don't.
That was very mean. That was very mean.
Not that far off. I've got another person here asking Will Howard or Shedeur Sanders today. That's interesting. I mean, I think I prefer maybe Howard. Just UCLA is a tough matchup. I think they're going to get after Shedeur. What do you guys think on that one?
Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup for Shedeur. And I know Will Howard, they were basically rotating series with him and Avery Johnson, but he was still effective last week. 3 passing touchdowns, he had 62 rushing yards himself. Houston's pass defense is not very good. So I like Will Howard this week. It's just so tough to sit Shedeur because of the volume that he's going to get there. So I would slightly lean Howard, but I understand if you feel like you can't sit Shedeur.
Reminder, this is a family show, Colin. Everybody else here have the same thoughts?
Little Freudian slip there. Talk about Colorado.
So in my projections, I've got Sanders a good bit higher, in the top 10. Howard, which I don't downgrade very much for the likely share of duties this week, but he's right around 25. So there's a pretty big gap there. I would probably lean Sanders, but I understand why others might not.
Sheer volume definitely favors Sanders, right? He just, has no rushing floor, and there is a chance that they score 10 points on the day.
You are going to lose between 4 or 5 points with his negative rushing yards today, by the way. Like he will probably lose 40 or 50 rushing yards.
Does he have a rush prop on
no, I actually just looked.
They haven't really been giving us a lot of those this year.
No,
which is a really big bummer.
They caught on to us, but yeah, I mean this front 7 for UCLA is going to get after him. I just wonder if we're going to see like a repeat of the Oregon game. That's my concern for Colorado. I mean, I think UCLA at 14 or 15, where's the line's at, like that's still a good play, which tells me should be a little concerned about Shedeur.
One last quarterback question here, and Drew, I see your wide receiver question. We'll touch on that here very, very shortly. Felix asked Thomas Castellanos, who is projected as our QB 19 on the week, including players that have already played. So really, 50, he'd probably be 16, 17 on this list. And he's very close to the guys on there. So, not a, arguably should be on there, comes up just short. Let's dive into the running backs here. And I think it's really, really interesting because really some of the big dogs that we think of are at the top of the list here this week, which is nice to see. Ollie Gordon, who's been on a tear lately for Oklahoma State at number 1. They have Cincinnati today, so that does feel like a smash spot for him. Similarly, for Jonathan Brooks, they have BYU. Ashton Genty, Boise State has Wyoming. Quinshon Judkins, Ole Miss plays Vanderbilt. Omarion Hampton, North Carolina has Georgia Tech. I mean, just great spots for some of these guys today. Carson Steele, they get Colorado. Mekhi Hughes from Tulane, they have Rice. Ray Davis, Kentucky's running back, they have Tennessee. That's a little more of a difficult matchup for him. Malik Sherrod, Fresno running back, been getting his mojo back, coming back from the injury at 9. They take on UNLV. Kerry Robinson, the San Jose running back, they have Hawaii. Bucky Irving, Oregon takes on Utah, so that'll be interesting. Strong defense there. LaDamian Webb, South Alabama has Louisiana. Kimani Vidal, Troy running back, they take on Texas State. And then Darius Taylor, and that's one to watch because he is injured. This is assuming that he's healthy. That's going to be a game time decision. So if you're a little worried about that, Blake Watson is the name right after him, the Memphis running back, and they take on North Texas. Nick, I always come to you first. I mean, what are we looking at here? What do you think of this list, or anybody that stands out that should be on there that maybe isn't?
So most of the top 10, top 14 are pretty similar. I do have Trey Benson set up for pretty good game. Project about 111 rushing yards today against Wake Forest. He is looks like RB8 in this week's projections. He's been a little bit banged up. Another guy who's been banged up, Israel Mahdi, is top 15 in this week's rankings, and taking out the teams that have already played, probably a little, looks like maybe 13th. So with them, they were off last week, I believe, Texas State. And so would expect that he's healthier now than he was. He was still playing through the injury and still pretty productive. But, there were 2-3 weeks ago, he was number 1 on this list for the site ranking. So would expect that he's going to have an opportunity against a tough Troy defense. But their strength's a little bit more in the pass rush than it is, just stopping the run. But feel like he's going to be a little bit closer to that high end that we saw before he was a little bit banged up.
I know our model doesn't break out, yardage, touchdowns, catches, etc. But according to what we project, about 100 yards and a touchdown for both of those guys on the day from a points perspective. So, the model doesn't hate him, just doesn't quite have him that high. Chris, you were starting to say something there. What's up?
George Holani's back for Boise State this week.
Is he officially? He's officially playing.
I don't know that it's official, but that's
anything?
the way that Boise State is talking about it. Like, all the Boise State people are like, he's back. What's the impact of that? The healthy backfield. And I'm like, okay, well, that probably tells me he's back. Just the way that Boise insiders are speaking about the game. That hurts Ashton G&T's ceiling. It just does, period. G&T is awesome, and he gets like 30 touches when Holani's not there. But when Holani comes back, he's like, I don't know. Like, I hate it. Holani's not nearly as explosive. He's good. He can get you yards, but G&T's clearly the better player. But they split almost 50-50. So it's definitely a lower ceiling if Holani is playing, and I think he will.
Colin, any final thoughts on the running backs?
Yeah, I think a notable name that wasn't on that list is Braylon Allen, the running back for Wisconsin. But, he's been looking pretty good this year. He's got some receptions a little going, but I think that's actually a good call that he's not on the list. He's somebody that I'm concerned about this week against that Ohio State defense. That's a very good defense. I would have a hard time playing Braylon Allen this week. I mean, we saw what he did in a very low scoring matchup against Iowa, and which was, next to nothing. So I think Braylon Allen being off of that list is the right play this week.
I have a league where I have to start him, and I sent out a trade offer last night to someone for Blake Watson just to see if I can swap those two out. Because I do not feel good about that here today. Wide receivers for this week. I think Devontae Walker being number 1 here is, pretty crazy considering the whole saga that he's had, but good for him. out there as projected as the wide receiver 1 this week. North Carolina takes on Georgia Tech. Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk. Oh, wow. We messed up the graphic there. We can just pull that off. That's fine. Sorry about that, Will. Not sure what happened there. Interesting. Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, Roma Dunze are all 2, 3, and tied for 4. So, Washington offense, if you think that's going to happen today, then Penix is a good play as well. Marvin Harrison Jr. Also in that grouping. Xavier Strepo, Miami receiver at 6. Colin Lacey, the South Alabama wideout at 7. Xavier Worthy, Texas wide receiver at 8. We'll see how he gets along there with Malik Murphy. Nick Anderson, Oklahoma's leading man apparently at 9 there. Troy Franklin, Oregon. Joey Hobart, Texas State wide receiver. Javon Baker, UCF takes on West Virginia. Jordan Watkins, Ole Miss receiver, they take on Vanderbilt. And then Joshua Cephas, UTSA against ECU. Nick, do you like Devontae Walker as much as we do this week, or what's?
I do actually. Yeah, the performance over the last couple of weeks has been incredibly encouraging. He looks as good as we thought he could. The matchup is good. The Drake May projection is really high. So yeah, Walker's shot up my projections in the last couple of weeks and is number 1, pretty close, right ahead of Roma Dunze and Marvin Harrison. Pretty strong group up at top. Did you say Joey Hobart from Texas State?
Mm-hmm.
He's
Hobart
up there. Okay.
There.
Yep. So looks like this week's projections pretty similar to what's on the site. One that my numbers continue to be quite high on, that I'm sure this is news to almost no one, but Emeka Egbuka is still top 15 in my numbers. He hasn't played the last couple of weeks. He did travel.
Probably playing today.
Very well could, but am I confident that he's going to be close to 100%? We saw some videos last week, pregame. He did not look very good, so he's going to have to look a lot better before I feel comfortable, I think, rolling him out. But that's one that my projections just continue to be probably a bit too high based on his injury situation.
Colin, what do you think about the wide receivers this week here? And just somebody did comment, if all those guys are in the top 15, should we have Penix too? And yeah, I mean, our model doesn't correlate them together, but yes, if you truly believe that there's a chance that all 3 of those guys have a good week, then Penix obviously a strong play there too. And for what's worth, I think so as well. I would start Penix if I had him.
Yeah, I would definitely start Penix if I had him. Against Stanford, I don't know that I see Jalen McMillan getting a ton of run just because he's been banged up. They don't need him. Like, I could see him being on a bit of a snap count, so I'd be hesitant to start him this week maybe. But a name that I didn't see on our list, Torrey Horton, the wide receiver from Colorado State. I mean, he's been having a great year this year, and the volume is probably going to be there, but they do get Air Force, who they're going to take the air out of the ball. They're going to run it all over this Colorado State defense. I think it's going to be a little bit of a lower scoring matchup than what we want, but just on sheer volume, I think Torrey Horton is still a guy that I'm comfortable playing, even though he might not have that ceiling that he does in some other weeks.
It's also currently, as we speak, snowing.
Oh,
so
in Colorado.
Something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Okay.
Is Horton healthy?
I think so. He didn't leave last week's game, did he? I mean, I thought he looked fine.
Okay. I don't think he did either, but I know he was banged up 2 weeks ago. So it's a tough matchup.
Our model
he'll probably
really,
play him,
yeah. I mean, he's my most rostered player across my leagues. In some spots I just kind of have to. Our model has him as wide receiver 178 this week. He's not even actually the top-ranked player with the last name Horton. EJ Horton from West Virginia. The model likes more than him this week.
Yikes!
It's a little bit of a surprise. Yeah, he's still top 10 in my numbers. But again, that's I take into account a little bit more history.
They're 15. I mean, they're 15-point dogs in a 46 game total. So
I was gonna say, what's the implied total? It's got to be fewer than
like
3 touchdowns. So yeah. So that's a tough one there. Any other thoughts here, Chris, before we briefly touch on tight ends? How about this for you, Chris? 2 names I want to ask you about. Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, and then Xavier Restrepo if Tyler Van Dyke doesn't play. Like, how are we feeling about those 2 situations there?
Fine about the first one. More concerned about the second one. Miami won against Clemson last week, but I have no idea what to think about Xavier Restrepo because I think he's the focal point of that passing offense. Does he have the same relationship with the backup quarterbacks? I think it's going to be Emory Williams, right? That it was with Tyler Van Dyke. I don't know.
Yeah. And then Drew had asked a few minutes ago, and let's touch on his question now that we're here at the wide receivers. He said, need 2 of Berrien Brown, Zachariah Branch, and Ashton Hawkins today. Any thoughts here, guys, on those 3? I don't, that it's one of those you kind of got to just stomach it and play them, I guess. But what do we think?
I think Branch is the guy I'm the most comfortable with out of that group, especially if you were in a league that counts like return yards or return touchdowns or anything like that. Then I think it would be pretty easy. But that matchup against Cal is pretty light. I think we're going to see USC's offense light them up this week. There's been a lot of talk about having a down past couple of weeks and dropping 2 in a row. I think they're going to be fired up. They're going to come out and light up Cal. So I think Branch is going to have a decent day. And then after that, I would probably lean Hawkins. Berrien Brown has a little bit of a higher ceiling maybe because he could just bust off some explosive plays given that speed. But I think the floor is going to be there for Hawkins. He'll probably get like 5 or 6 catches in this game. So I think I would go Branch and Hawkins.
What do we think, Nick, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I was probably going to order them Hawkins and then Branch, but same 2 for me.
Okay, well, I was going to say Brown.
Well, tell us why.
It's a really tough matchup for Troy, or for Texas State against Troy. So I don't really know how much that offense is really going to produce, and I don't know that Hawkins is really the wide receiver 1 there. I think it's probably Hooper at this point. So a wide receiver 2 in a tough matchup concerns me a little bit.
Is he even their wide receiver 2? I mean, Cole Wilson's been getting targeted pretty heavily over the past few weeks too. So
yeah, that's true. And Cole Wilson was a guy I think that followed GJ Kinney, right?
He did.
So
yeah.
There's a little bit of a relationship there. Yeah, I mean, I'm just not that high on Hawkins this week.
We got a couple questions about Squirrel White as well this week. What do we think there? Model has him 56, just short of 20 fantasy points this week. I mean, Kentucky, if he's healthy, I think for sure you got to throw him in there if you got him.
Yeah, I agree. In the right direction.
Yeah, he's had over the past 3 weeks, he's had 9, 6, and 12 targets. 2 of those games over 100 yards. So it does seem like he's back healthy, and that Kentucky pass defense is vulnerable. That's where you would beat them. So I feel fine going with Squirrel White as a flex play this week.
He had a sick catch last week.
Mm-hmm.
Would you play him over Xavier Henderson?
Who's Cincinnati playing again? Oklahoma State?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Yeah, I think I would too.
All right. Let's break down tight ends here real quick. Keep those questions coming, guys, if you have any one that you're thinking about starting or sitting today. Tight end on the week. And top guy is Bryson Nesbitt, which I think is a little surprising, especially with how he started off the offseason a little bit in the doghouse. It seemed like they took on Georgia Tech today. Jack Velling from Oregon State. He's been a top projected guy for us for a few weeks now here at the Oregon State tight end. Cade Stover coming off a big week there at 3 for Ohio State. Ben Sinnott for Kansas State at 4. Jaheim Bell, the Florida State tight end at 5. Trey Watson from Fresno State at 6. Mason Fairchild, Kansas tight end at 7. Clemson tight end Jake Brenningstool at 8. RJ Maryland from SMU at 9. Mitchell Evans, Notre Dame tight end at 10. Shimon Medier, the Cincinnati tight end, at 11. Trayton Welch, Wyoming tight end, at 12. Terrence Ferguson, Oregon tight end, at 13. And then Dallin Holker from Colorado State at 14. Tight end's been kind of decimated this year, guys. This is what we got. Any thoughts, Nick?
Well, I mean, a couple of my preseason favorites, it's good to see are trending in the right direction. Nesbitt, Brenning Sewell, coming along over the course of the season. I think their talent is finally showing a little bit better than how they were in the first couple of weeks. But yeah, the injury issues at tight end are significant. One name who is pretty high on that list is one to watch this week. Vincent Ott missed the last quarter or two of last week's game, and sounds like is questionable coming into this week. So I don't have any update this morning. Just read on one of the K-State sites that officially listed him as questionable. But yeah, there's so many that we've lost so far this year. But at least some of those guys that perhaps were a little bit disappointing now have better opportunity to be productive.
Colin, I know you're a big tight end guy.
Big tight end
Give us
guy.
your breakdown on the tight end slate here today, the landscape.
I think we did a good job of including like the right guys. The only guy that I think could be on that list is Trey Knox, the tight end out of South Carolina. He's had a pretty solid year so far this year. He's had at least five targets in each of the last 5 games, 3 games in the stretch with 8 targets. They get Texas A&M, which is kind of a tougher matchup, but just the way that he's been involved in the offense, I would feel fine rolling him out. It's a pretty low ceiling play, but the tight end position is pretty decimated. So I think if you can get a nice floor like Knox provides, like I'm good with that.
Chris, you actually are the tight end guy here. What do you think? I mean, all your guys are gone now. All your guys are gone.
It's a hard knock life, man, with this tight end situation. I think Oscar Delp is potentially playable.
Do you think he's a better play than Lucky?
I do.
Okay.
Personally, he's just been in the system longer. I think, he was playing more in 2 tight end sets to start the year. So if you really need somebody, I don't think Florida is, I'm not sure how great they are at covering the tight end. So I think that would be a good matchup.
Fair enough. We have Rick in the chat here who asks, start 2 in a standard 6-point league, Bo Nix, John Reese Plumlee, or Shador. John Reese Plumlee, not a guy that we talked about when we discussed QBs, and probably because he's just back from injury. But they have a pretty nice. They have West Virginia today, I believe. Yep. UCF does. What do we think of that grouping, guys?
I was actually going to mention Plumlee a little bit later. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good spot for him. So I'd be tempted to go with Nix and Plumlee. But yeah, the matchups for Sanders and Nix, quite honestly, on the road at Utah, not necessarily ideal. But yeah, I like Plumlee this week.
All right, and one more question here. Somebody asked Elijah Badger, Arizona State wide receiver, Javon Baker from UCF, Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, or Evan Stewart, Texas A&M. It's an interesting group. What do we think? Anderson probably has to be one of the names, right? And who do we pair with him? Is that where we're all at?
Yeah, I think I'm at Anderson. I would agree with that, especially with Andrell Anthony being out and Jaleel Farouk not really looking great. He's kind of their wide receiver 1. So I like Nick Anderson there. Badger's probably my next play. He's got the higher floor out of that offense. He just has been getting a ton of targets the past couple of weeks. He's 11 last week, 16 the week before, 7, 13 the week before that. So he's getting all that volume. They get Washington State, which is not a matchup that really scares me that much. So I would probably go with Badger over Baker. But, I don't think that any of them are bad plays there, to be honest.
Anybody else?
I agree with Colin. I got an injury update though, real quick for
please
tight
enlighten us.
ends.
Before you do that, let's get some likes on this video, guys. We should have way more based on the comment volume in here this morning. Give us a like, and if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead, do that as well. All right, Chris, tell us what's up here.
Corey Dyches, tight end for Maryland's back, and when he was playing, he was getting quite a few targets. So he's not listed on the injury report. I mean, you can roll him out. I think you have to if you're looking for a tight end today.
Fair enough. We are going to talk some injury updates later on here. And then we've kind of touched on some of these already. Any other, let's just go right into our start sits a little bit here, guys. Some players that, maybe we didn't discuss here that we like this week. And Nick, I'll come right to you first here. I know you already kind of teased it at maybe JRP, him, maybe somebody else that you like as well.
Yeah, I did end up going with Plumlee in a couple of my decisions that I had to make this week. Maybe he's a little less obvious than the other quarterback in this matchup who's really been on a tear, Garrett Green. Two back-to-back really, really excellent weeks. I feel like both quarterbacks are a good start possibilities in this matchup. But one that I'm going to be sitting a matchup is mostly anybody in this game, probably. The posted total is 39.5. But Miami of Ohio and Ohio, Gage Laverdane, who's really had an excellent season, back and healthy and trending in the right direction. But Brett Gabbert went down with a just gruesome lower body injury last week. Miami of Ohio quarterback. Avion Smith, who I think is a really exciting player, but that offense changes a bit with him there and Gabbert out. So I do think that Laverdane's probably going to see still the majority of targets, but I just don't think that the volume is going to be there quite where it was. Especially earlier in the year when Gabbert was healthy and that offense was clicking a little more close to 100%.
Fair enough. I didn't realize that Gabbert had gone down last week.
Oh yeah, don't watch the video if you're squeamish.
Yeah, he was one of 3 quarterbacks who were taken off in ambulances.
Him, McCall, another one. Third.
Maybe it was just the 2, but it was. I mean, the quarterback injury situation last week seemed like definitely on the higher side of what we've seen so far.
Yeah. Was it worse than the Nick Chubb injury?
No, not because the camera angle wasn't there. But I don't expect Gabbert back this year. I don't think he'll play college football again.
I was going to say, does he have?
I think he's officially
eligibility.
He had surgery.
It was a compound fracture in his ankle, for what it's worth.
One of those. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It sucks because, fun player, good player.
Yep.
Yeah, Miami of Ohio having a pretty good year there all around too. So that stinks for them. Colin, start sits today?
I got 2 guys this week. Trey Harris, wide receiver for Ole Miss, going up against Vandy, is my first start here. And we had Jordan Watkins in the top 15. I think he was 14th there. So I don't think Watkins is a bad play, but Trey Harris is Dart's favorite target, really. I mean, he has been over 100 yards in 2 of the last 3 games. When he's healthy, he's the guy for Ole Miss. I think there's a very good chance he scores here in this game. They get Vandy, very bad pass defense. They allow 351 pass yards per game. They're 14th worst in defensive pass EPA per play, 19th worst in the country in defensive pass success rate. So that's a pretty soft matchup. I think Ole Miss can light up the scoreboard against Vandy. So I feel good about Trey Harris. And then on the other side, my sit here is Devin Neal, the running back for Kansas. Yeah, he's had a great start to the year, but they get Oklahoma in this one. That's a tough matchup, tough run defense, 12th in defensive rush EPA per play, 6th in defensive rush success rate. And then Devin Neal's actually been in a little bit of a slump lately. He's got 1 touchdown in his last 4 games. 3 out of those 4 have been below 100 yards. It sounds like Jason Bean is going to be the quarterback here again, so that limits the offense overall. So I negative game script too in that Oklahoma game. So I don't feel good about Devin Neal this week.
Is it definitely Bean? Just because we have some of our cohort over at C2C that are right now speculating that Jalen Daniels is playing. What are we thinking?
Daniels is on the field. The Kansas beat writer for 24/7, Michael Swain, said he's not playing today, though. He is throwing.
I have the under on Jason Bean's passing total today, so that's just why I was like, oh, that's perfect. Give him like 2 series and have Jalen Daniels play the rest. That'd be cool.
That line's been jumping all over the place this week. It was like 10.5, then it got about down to 7.5. Now it's 8 and 9 in some spots. So it's been weird. There's rumors that Oklahoma's suffering from the flu throughout their locker room, that we're gonna have some starters out. That's just a bizarre game.
Probably avoiding that one if we're betting, huh?
Unless you got the 10 that I told y'all to take on Wednesday.
All right, I did not take that. So okay, Chris, bring us home on some sits decisions here today.
I like Harrison Whaley this week against Boise State. Boise State's run defense is kind of trash. They allow a lot of explosive plays, and Harrison Whaley will play. He is back. He said, "I missed too much time, man." So I'm excited to get him back. I think that you can roll him out with a lot of confidence. I expect the game to just be like a ground and pound on both sides, really. And then my sit is basically the entire Wake Forest offense. It's already kind of a tough matchup against Florida State, but they're on their third string quarterback, and their first 2 strings weren't any good either. So that kind of tells you about what to expect from this offense. I actually took the under on the Jamal Banks passing or receiving yardage as well. So I really, really don't like this Wake Forest matchup today for them. I think it could get real ugly.
Brett in the chat he says, is Whaley fully healthy?
I don't know that he's fully healthy, but I do know that he's playing.
By week 9, is anybody really fully healthy? Is that
right? Very, very similar situation for Nate Noel. I don't think we mentioned him so far today. Sounds like he is back. Missed the last game. Had like 1 touch or 2 in the previous game. Ankle injury. A lot of ankle injuries this week, but sounds like he's in a similar situation. Expected to play. Expected to be close to 100%, but probably not all the way there.
And then Brett also asks, is Jalen Daniels sitting out the rest of the season? I mean, it's a back injury. Those are tough, man.
I really thought he would. I really, really thought he would, but he's throwing today, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think with him being on the field throwing today, that kind of makes me think that he might not sit out the full rest of the season. But at the same point, like, what is Kansas like playing for here? Maybe bowl eligibility, but realistically, I think that the smart move would probably be to sit him. But are they going to do that? It's hard to say at this point. So I don't think there's a clear picture either way. But just don't play him today.
Yeah, just to give a quick update on the Wake Forest situation. Santino Mariucci, who started last week, is throwing, as is Charles Gilliam. Mitch Griffiths is just stretching. I doubt that he's going to play.
Just saw an update. Apparently Griffiths is also throwing, so who knows?
Oh my gosh, come on. I'm guessing he's not going, though, if he wasn't.
It didn't sound, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Didn't sound like it.
I mean, all you need is an arm to throw. That's really all you need. Got some more questions coming in here. We're going to go to break about 5 minutes. Let's see how many of these we can get answered on this side, and then we'll get the rest on the other. Thoughts on Jawar Jordan, the Louisville running back with a hamstring injury? I mean, it's a tough matchup this week.
I'm avoiding it if I can.
Yeah, some of us don't have much better though. Would you play Jawar Jordan this week? And would you recommend playing Jawar Jordan this week?
Who's my alternative? Right? Is it like Jawar Jordan or
Maurice Turner? Or sorry, you're talking about on your roster.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying in general. Like I have no idea who you'd be picking against, but I would prefer not to play Jawar Jordan if I can. I just don't know how well they're going to move the ball. To be fair though, the front 7 on Duke is probably the weakest unit. Their secondary is a lot better. So if you actually absolutely have to, I think you can. But they're still top 40, top 50 in most like rushing grades. So just something to note.
Everybody else in this same boat there.
I can't endorse starting him unless you have like no other options from bye weeks and other injuries and things like that. But I would do everything I can to not start him in this one.
Yeah. If you're desperate, you can expect that he's not going to get a 0 because it does sound like he's playing. But hopefully they're better options for you.
Main Event asks, is Sione Vaki the new shiny toy at Utah running back? Is he a sit this week against Oregon?
I think so.
I think Jaquindon Jackson is a sit.
That was a decision I was struggling with a little bit because Vaki, I mean, he's involved. 2 weeks ago, got a lot of rushing production last week, receiving production. Definitely does limit Jackson a bit, but I don't know that Vaki's he's fun, really, really good player, and they want to get him the football. But yeah, probably not going to get a heavy workload. But he's been good when he's gotten opportunities.
I think Utah has taken a step back on both sides of the offensive and defensive line in the last year and a half, for what it's worth. Like, I don't think they're going to get the same push that they always have. And that's true for both sides. So I don't know. I am a little curious what happens today because Oregon's not that good against the run. I mean, they're fine. They're like average. So I would not play him. I'm a little nervous about it, but if you're desperate, it's a tough week for buys.
It should be our last tough week, I think. I think from here on out, it's pretty close to a full slate.
Unless you're relying on USC in the championship.
I was going to say that.
I actually, you know what? Let's have this discussion real quick before we go to break. If you had to pair if you have Caleb Williams, who's like a good quarterback to pair him with here? Does anybody have some ideas off the top of their head, or do you need the break to think on that?
Diego Pavia.
That just because you like Diego Pavia, or you got like actual reasoning for that? Or? Just curious.
No, he's been playing honestly. Like, I don't want to say spectacular, but he's been really, really good. He's not turning the ball over as much as he usually does. I like Diego Pavia. That's the first name that came to my head. I don't know.
I'm not sure I understood the question. I'm not
sure.
I mean, you've got to sit him that last week. Are there some quarterbacks you should be acquiring to be your starter that week because he's no Caleb Williams for week 13 or whatever.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
Gotcha. Okay, so my answer might not. I was thinking along the same lines of Mox. Is like the first thing that popped in my head, and mostly it was based on today. I think it's a really good matchup is Jackson Dart. The championship week matchup, Mississippi State, not as good, but that playoff, the semifinal week, Dart's going to be going up against ULM. So that is a pretty decent option there. If you're thinking, got to win that semifinal to get to the championship, could do worse than Dart. It does have to play Georgia the week prior to that though. So,
I think Seth Hennigan would be a good pairing with him. They get Temple in the final week of the season, so that's going to be a really soft one, a matchup. And I don't think Hennigan is going to cost you a lot to go out and acquire if that's kind of the direction that you're looking at. If you don't already have a guy on your roster you would feel good about in week 13 and, you want to go get somebody, I think Hennigan could be a nice option there.
One name that just popped in my head, they are consistently among the highest point total, the Vegas point totals weekly. North Texas, Chandler Rogers has solidified that quarterback job, and they get Tulsa and UAB in those final 2 weeks. So,
man, that total is going to be like 75 points against UAB.
So that might be a name just to file away.
Awesome. All right. Those are all really good names. We're going to go to break here, guys. When we come back, we're going to talk some prize picks. We'll talk, some of your guys' best betting picks for the week. And we'll get to more of your start sit questions if you got them. So keep dropping them in the chat. Give us a like. We'll be back in just a short break here. This is the Tailgate here from the Campus2Canton group.
It's college football game day, and we're getting you ready for all the action on campus to Canton.
From the Hometown Hero series, Zach Parise.
That is a very nice card, and that's one I'm probably going to have to organize a little trade ski with you, because I would actually like that card.
I mean, you got downtown Newark in the background. I mean, Newark has never looked so good.
No, it is not.
We'll put that back up on the screen. I just want to have a penny sleeve ready, and yes, we can absolutely work out a little trade ski for that, because that belongs in a Devil fans collection right there.
I'll trade you the Braden Schneider rookie card for it.
Done.
There we go. The first card-for-card trade on Rip and Riff history. And it was that easy.
It was that easy. That's because, you know what? Because neither one of us are jerks. And it's the same thing when we try and do fantasy trades. Like, we don't try and screw each other. We have conversations. If there's a fit, there's a fit. If it's not, it's not. We don't try and, take the other one over the barrel. So there you go. In a penny sleeve. Hometown hero, Zach Parise. He was among the league's most productive goal scorers in 06-07 and followed up with a terrific regular season with an even more impressive postseason. And then they talk about what he did in the first round series against Tampa Bay that year. So that's off to the side for you.
That's true. And, if this is it for his career, he had a hell of a career.
He did.
Hopefully he comes back one more year with the Islanders, but if he doesn't, hell of a run.
Breaking it down there for you guys. Tailgate brought to you by Campus2Canton here. Chris, Colin, Nick, myself, and then, of course, Will, producer in the background, helping us out with everything today. I think we have somebody who wants to join the show here for just a second.
Got a call?
That's literally all the information that I have. So there he is. Felix Sharpe at Sharpe Review. Nice beard, Felix. What's going on here this morning?
Guys, I love the show this morning. I generally love what you're doing at Campus2Canton.com. I can't believe what you can get for $2.99 a month, from the depth charts for all 133 FBS teams, projections, DFS tools to help. I love what you guys are doing over there at Campus2Canton.com. Anybody who hasn't checked out the website absolutely should. But I am very disappointed in the four of you this morning. Extremely disappointed. It's been an hour into the show, and we haven't talked about the one story that could have the biggest ripple effect in college football over the next 2 seasons.
We're going to be talking about the Ivy League
Alabama. When you look at Alabama, when you look at Ohio State, when you look at Washington next year, so many teams that could be looking for quarterbacks, and you all haven't even mentioned the name Malik Murphy this morning, who gets the start at 3:30 p.m. against BYU in place for an injured Quinn Ewers. This is an audition, gentlemen. This could be an audition for the Texas job. It could be an audition for the Washington job. It could be an audition for a number of jobs around the country where coaches were already trying to recruit this guy to the transfer portal after his spring game performance. So I'm quite frankly, I'm disappointed. I think the four of you should be ashamed of yourselves for not even mentioning the name Malik Murphy this morning. I will also say this to this audience watching this show. I'm disappointed in you all too. There should be at least 25 likes on this video so you can help these guys reach more people. It's just disappointing all around this morning. I can't believe that you haven't talked about Malik Murphy. I can't believe you haven't whipped this audience into shape to get this video out there to more people. But you know what? That's just me. Long time listener, first time caller.
Don't leave, Felix. Don't leave. What would you set the line at for Malik Murphy's passing yardage today?
265.5. That's what I would.
Wow. I actually might take. I would maybe
oddly
take over
specific
on that. Okay, Felix. Let's have a bet right here on air. You take the over. I'll take the under.
There we go.
And we will.
Hold on. Can I attach stakes to this?
I was going to say,
because you know exactly where I'm going to go. No. You know exactly where I'm going to go. For anybody who's listened to our content for years, 3 years, there's been a very special guest that I've been trying to get on one of our shows. Yes. I've been trying to get a very special guest on our shows for a very long time, and Austin knows exactly what I'm talking about. and we need to put your money where your mouth is. 265.5. If he goes over, we get that special guest on, and you know who it is, Austin.
Is it Kirk Herbstreit?
Yeah, it's Kirk Herbstreit. Okay.
Can we?
It is not Kirk.
Can we say who it
Herbstreit.
is?
By all means.
It's Austin's mom.
Go ahead.
Fine. Okay. I'll agree to
Oh,
265 and a half.
This is. I've been trying. Austin gets his fandom from his mother, and for 2.5 years, I've been trying to get his mom on one of our podcasts on Devy Debate. So much so, where Colin Decker up there in the right-hand corner of your screen helped me get her email address. I sent her an email. She was like, "What the heck is this?" Didn't believe.
Email.
She thought it was a spam email. I've been trying to get Austin's mom on our shows for a very long time. 265.5. He goes over. We get your mom on the show. How about that?
Deal.
I project 222.5. FYI.
Vegas projects 238.5.
You got good value here, Austin.
That makes me feel so much better. And what does Felix give me if I win?
That's a fair
true.
point. It's a fair point.
I have nothing of value. I have nothing to contribute that I could give you. So
We'll figure that one out off
We'll
air.
figure that one out.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll figure that
that
one
was a
out.
good.
drop a like on this video. It should be up to, I don't know, 25, 30. Look, who else is doing a show like this morning, every Saturday of the morning, getting you ready from a college fantasy perspective? Go ahead and drop the like. Help these guys.
All right, Will, get this guy out of here. Get this lunatic out of here. Bye, Felix.
Appreciate you guys.
Bye, Felix.
Very disappointed in you. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Okay, well, that was some unexpected fun this morning. He actually wanted to be on the show fully this morning, and I'm at this point quite
10 a.m.
thankful
came
that
up
did
quick.
not happen. Yeah, we got some more start sit questions here in the chat, guys. Let's touch on some of them here real quick. Tight end question: Texas's JT Sanders or Arliss Boardingham from Florida? What do we think here?
Well, if you're on the Malik Murphy over 265.5, I think you got to play JT Sanders. I think I would still play JT Sanders, though. I think he's just a little bit of a safer play. Going up against Georgia, that's a tough matchup for Florida's offense. They use Boardingham in a variety of ways, but I think I would still trust Sanders more.
I would actually go Boardingham. Sanders has not really been that strong the last couple of weeks. It's a tough matchup, I know, but shockingly, Graham Mertz has been playing okay football, and Boardingham has emerged as like a primary target on that offense. So I think that's the way that I would go.
When I read the question, I read Boardingham as Brittingstool, and I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of close." But I think Boardingham, I would lean Sanders.
Okay. All right. So we have 2 votes for Sanders there and 1 for Boardingham.
I'm on the opposite side of everything again today.
Sometimes that works out well. Sometimes not so much. Lars asks, Roman Hemby or Le'Veon Moss, or are we hoping on Darius Taylor? I think I've benched Taylor wherever I have him because it is a hamstring issue. I don't feel that great about it. What do you guys think?
My numbers like Taylor. It does assume full strength, so that's an issue. And that Minnesota running back room as a whole has dealt with some injuries. Zach Evans, I believe, is going to be out. Williams is out for the season. So if Taylor's able to play and if he's close to 100%, I think that he's going to be in line for a pretty heavy workload and decent matchup against Michigan State. So if we knew that he was close to full strength, I would say Taylor.
Guys,
Yeah, I'd lean that way too. Hemby is just really tough to trust right now. He hasn't scored in his last 4 games. He's had some real duds in there too. It is a soft matchup against Northwestern, but I would have a hard time trusting Hemby in this one. I don't love Le'Veon Moss either. I think that the way to beat South Carolina is more through the air. Now, can Max Johnson do that? I don't necessarily
Beat him any way you
know.
want.
I was going to say, I think you can beat him any which way you want.
I think if I want to be safe, I probably go with Moss, but just because of the injury with Taylor. But I would try to go with Taylor if I can. I would monitor that very, very closely.
Danny asks, Trey Harris from Ole Miss, Torrey Horton versus Air Force from Malik Sharpe. I really like Sherrod this week.
I like Sherrod too.
I just think there's guaranteed volume there, more or less, for him. And Harris's role, I don't know if it's been slight injury or what, but he seems to fluctuate depending on the week.
Is Mikey Keene back today?
Is who?
Mikey Keene, the Fresno quarterback.
I had heard no earlier in the week. Is that still holding? They still expected Fife? I don't know.
I heard no earlier,
maybe Monday or Tuesday, but
I had heard no earlier as well. But he's questionable.
Fife's confident though, right? Like I feel like they're competent. Like he's fine.
And I mean, if he's not fine, then just hand the ball off to Sherrod. It's UNLV. It's not like that's a defense you're scared of.
It's mostly more concerned about the offensive ceiling and getting in scoring positions.
Sure.
But it probably doesn't matter. And I don't know. The odds have really not moved all that much. Although it looks like Fresno's taking some money right now. It's gone to 9.5 from 9. So maybe Keene is playing.
He said he has been practicing some, Tedford said, but it's still too early to make a decision. But that was earlier in the week.
Practicing some. That could mean literally anything.
Right.
Got another quick injury up. Oh, no, never mind. I lied.
Fair enough. All right. Let's see here. Michael Pratt or Thomas Castellanos?
Pratt.
Yeah, I'd probably lean Pratt too, but I don't think Castellanos is a bad play. I mean,
no, two good options.
Those are both good options. It's just, probably a little safer with Pratt.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where I just could put either of them in there, and I don't feel that bad about it at the end of the day.
1 point potentially for Castellanos. Garwo, top running back there, is going to be out again. So Castellanos have to do it a little more with his legs like the last week.
I might actually lean Castellanos after I thought about it. I don't think the Rice defense is all that bad. I think they're a little bit better or a lot better than the UConn defense. So might lean Castellanos there, but they're both good options.
Ismail Mahdi or Jordan Watkins, if he plays, is our last one that we have in the chamber here.
I don't know how you can play Mahdi against this Troy defense, especially if he's still banged up. But that's my 2 cents.
I like it. I think he's
Nick?
potentially.
We don't know how.
Because so he was banged up, but he hasn't actually missed time. Probably would expect was able to take a step forward health wise with them being off last week. Troy is a good defense, tough matchup. I mean, they're number 6 in my rushing defensive team performance numbers, so that's obviously very good. But in my personal opinion, the strength of that and probably something that factors into that number a little bit is the pass rush. Troy pass rush is off the charts. So yeah, it's not the best matchup. So maybe I'm talking myself out of it, but I do think that Mahdi's a good option this week.
And then actually we got one more. We were talking there. Scatabo, Malik Sherrod, or Darius Taylor?
I think that's
not
Sherrod
Taylor.
for me.
Sherrod. He's top of the
two good options.
Yeah,
I mean, Colin.
I was going to say, I think it's Sherrod for me. And Nate Marquise wrote a great write-up on Scatabo in the CFF Pulse of the Nation article over at Campus2Canton.com, where Scatabo has been trending down a little bit with DeCarlos Brooks coming back. So I think those two things, I'm still not overly worried about Scatabo. I think he's a fine play, but I think Sherrod is a very good play.
I think both are good plays, to be honest. UNLV's rush defense is kind of trash, and Washington State's rush defense is trash. I mean, like Washington State's like bottom 10 in most rushing metrics. So, I mean, both success rate and explosiveness. So you can do stuff against them. I also like Cam Scatterbo because he punts a lot. Like you'll see him just like out of nowhere on like fourth down or punt it. It's awesome.
So in your points per punt yard league, Scatterbo, the obvious play.
Right. Forgot
Otherwise, it becomes a little
Forgot to
tougher
back
there.
it
Damian Martinez or DJ Giddens? Sorry, Damian
So
Martinez
I was considering
DJ Giddens here.
I was considering Trayshawn Ward as a start today, and then I was just looking through the player props again, and Giddens' rushing total is like 56.5. Ward's is 86.5 or something on DraftKings. So I don't know. I don't know if that means that Giddens is trending in the wrong direction, but the fact that Ward does seem to be coming on, getting a little heavier workload, getting healthier. Martinez is the guy for Oregon State for the most part. So I think I'm a little more comfortable with Martinez.
It's Martinez a slam dunk for me.
I would also lean Martinez.
Goes back. Go ahead, sorry, Colin.
I would also lean Martinez here in this one. You have to be a little bit worried about DJU vulturing some touchdowns around the goal line. We've seen that happen a couple times this year, but I still feel better with Martinez.
Whoa. I like every once in a while I find a stat that surprises me. I had no idea that this Arizona defense was that good against the run. Maybe I've just
the Arizona defense as a whole has played pretty well.
They've improved a lot.
Yeah, they for sure have. I just didn't realize they were like a top 3 unit against the run. Like they're not allowing any explosive rushes, like at all. They're like top 3.
Interesting.
So maybe I still think I would play Damian Martinez, but that surprised me more than I thought it would.
Let's jump into some Prize Picks stuff here, guys. Promo code C2C if you are new over on Prize Picks, get you a deposit match up to $100. And hopefully we can help you guys win a little bit of money here this morning. These are all, player, stat lines you're betting more or less than. Nick, what do you like this week over on Prize Picks?
So we've mentioned a little bit this week that Ole Miss is a good matchup against Vanderbilt. I like Jackson Dart a lot this week. The last number I saw was 244.5 for passing yards for Jackson Dart. I like the over on that. Our projections are creeping up pretty close to 300 yards. So there's definitely potentially some edge depending on what the number may be now. A couple of running backs that I like, really 3 running backs. I like both of the Florida running backs this week. I know the matchup against Georgia is a tough one, but the both Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne were under 40 yards. So I picked Johnson over 38.5. I feel like there's some good value in our numbers. See, 15 to 20 yards on both. Depending on who ends up, getting the heavier workload, there's even more value. And then South Carolina, Mario Anderson. 56.5 rushing yards. We project closer to 70. So I feel like that's some decent value for a few overs this week.
Chris?
Yeah, I like that ETN call specifically. His number's 33.5. I really, really like that. I like Trey Benson under. I'm pretty skeptical of Trey Benson this week. He had that huge blow up 3 weeks ago, I think now, for like over 200 yards. He's just like being mixed in and not being a true bell cow. And Wake's front 7 is not bad. That Wake defense has taken a pretty significant step forward this year. So I think he might just like get like 10 carries and they put him on ice and let Toafili do with it, his thing. So I'm under on that Trey Benson number. I like Bo Nix over 1.5 touchdowns too. That number just feels a little low. Like I know they're playing at Utah in Utah.
Is that pass or total?
Sorry? That's
Is that passing touchdowns or total?
Yeah, that's pass. I don't know. I just like that just feels low. I think Oregon can score on this team, and I think they can hit explosives too. So like I think Troy Franklin gets one. I think Tez Johnson might get one. I like it under 2 though. And then I mentioned this one earlier in the show. Jamal Banks under 53.5 receiving yards. I really, really don't like this Wake Forest quarterback situation. So yeah, I very skeptical of Banks and really that anybody on that offense having a big game. I've seen the Banks prop hit a couple times by some sharp people too. So that makes me feel a little bit better that I'm not on an island on that one. So I wish we had a quarterback rushing one, but they're taking them away from us because we're hitting them.
Yeah, they're going with just regular lines from books this year. It's not been quite as fun betting some of the weird lines.
They're Well, I don't want to get into that. All right, sorry.
Yeah. I do, Colin. We're going to get to yours in here in a second, but we did get a couple questions coming while we're talking here, so you just calm down. Devin McQueen or McEwen or Barry and Brown this week? What do we think?
Oh man, probably Barry and Brown. Devin McEwen is I don't know, the third option on that passing attack. They've been getting going a little bit more so here now, but it's really Josh Cephas and everybody else. And then at least Barry and Brown, I mean, he can bust off a big play at any point in time. So I would lean Brown.
Which offense do you think is going to score more today? Because that's almost just the direction I would lean.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought as well. I think it's UTSA. So I would go McEwen.
Nick.
Sorry, FCS lines posted. Yeah, I agree. I think that. I think you guys are on it.
Ooh, some FCS lines posted. Was there something that you were betting real quick here? Pull up my book.
We haven't gotten to our best bets just yet, but I have this is big game, obviously. I have Merrimack as a favorite against St. Francis. They're plus 3.5 right now on DraftKings, so that one caught my eye.
I also have them favored, but
All right, everyone, run to do that real quick here. Those lines move so fast that I feel like
Merrimack plus 3.5. Let's do it.
All right, I'm locking it in right now. All right, Colin, let's get back to you now here. Go ahead. Prize picks plays for.
Thank you. My first play here, I have Caleb Williams over 2.5 passing touchdowns. He has missed that in 3 straight games. Those were against 2 tough defenses, Notre Dame and Utah, and Arizona, who we are discovering is actually a pretty solid defense overall. But at the end of the day, this is Caleb Williams. This is Lincoln Riley. Caleb Williams went over this total 8 games last year, and he went over 5 games this year. They get Cal, so I feel pretty good about him going over 2.5 here. A little bit of a combo play that I like as well, building off of this. Caleb Williams and Michael Penix over 6 pass, rush, and receiving touchdowns. If I think Caleb Williams gets 3 or more, Penix has to get 3 or more as well through the air. And he's gone for 3 or more. Penix has gone for 3 or more touchdowns in 5 games this year, with the exception of the state of Arizona, who he has 0 passing touchdowns against, which I thought was kind of interesting. So
wait, the state of Arizona or Arizona State? He hasn't thrown a touchdown in Arizona?
Well, the only one of those games was in Arizona, but no touchdowns against Arizona, none against Arizona State.
What about Northern Arizona?
I will put them on the schedule next. Let's see if he can get over that hump.
University of Phoenix?
Is that an online school?
He has 0 touchdowns against them. I'll tell you that
stadium.
That's a good point.
Should see their online football team, though. It's very, very good. Somebody asked, is Bucky Irving a full go? I didn't realize that was a question.
I think so.
Really. I think he's going to be fine.
As far as I know, I haven't seen anything.
Okay.
Oh, he was a little banged up toward the end of the last game. I haven't heard anything, but Oregon never releases information. So I wasn't concerned enough about it to think about it. Yeah, I expect he'll play.
And somebody also mentioned Grand Canyon University. So, hit us with your Arizona schools, everybody. We'll see what Caleb. we'll tell you how many touchdowns Caleb Williams should have against it.
And then my last play, my favorite play of the week, Garrett Green over 280.5 pass and rush yards. He's been over 350 pass and rush yards in back-to-back games. So cleared this very easily in back-to-back games. He's pretty much been their whole offense. And then UCF's defense is not very good. They give up 394.1 total yards per game and 196.3 rush yards per game. So I think realistically, Garrett Green only needs to throw for like right around 200 yards to hit this total.
Chris, I saw you saying timeout. What's up?
Mitch Griffis will play for Wake Forest today and start. So
you sounded awfully sure he wouldn't a few minutes ago.
Are you back on Wake?
I was pretty confident he wouldn't, but he will return and start against Florida State. By the way, not that Mitch Griffis is some game-changing quarterback, because he has not been very good this year, but I do think he's better than Marucci, who had like 2 career passes prior to last week.
Was playing defense last year.
Yeah, so there you go. That's Wake Forest situation. I don't know how healthy Griffis will be. Just I would take a lot of what I've said about that Wake Forest situation more with skepticism.
Garrett Green or Bo Nix today?
Ooh, probably Green. I don't dislike either of them, but I feel better about Green.
Bench Bo Nix just kind of feels like one of those galaxy brain ones that
yeah.
can really
it's like an automatic start, right?
4 touchdowns, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
No. That was all I had to input. Do you Green?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely a scenario where it's like Bo Nix is probably an automatic start, not going to move him out. But this matchup for Green, I mean, everything Colin said, plus my projections had him throwing for 280 this week. So Green looks great on paper. Nix on paper, the matchup at Utah scares me a little bit. But yeah, Nix is one of those elite players that you're probably better off just not removing from your lineup. At least I usually don't.
All right. Keep those questions coming, guys. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can here before we run out of time on the day. All right. So we have Corey/Mike, one of our Devy guys every week. They give us a little segment on some players that they are watching in today's games. I believe Mike is making an appearance this week, so I just want to apologize ahead of time for whatever he says. Does not represent the views of the group here on screen. Let's bring Mike on to see what he has to say about players that we are watching in today's contests. Oh, wait, hold on one second, actually. Hold on. So apologies. Will, our producer, says we've got Justin calling in. So let's bring Justin on first. Justin, when we get you on here, what's going on, man? How are you doing today?
Good, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
So, hey, good show as always. Couple questions for you. Got a flex spot. Vaki from Utah, who, Nick likes. I have Harrison Whaley, who Mox likes. And then I also have Trey Benson, who Nick earlier said, he kind of had projected for like 110-1. What do you guys think about any of those?
Mox and I have differing views on Benson this week. My numbers really, really like him. I probably would I don't know. I would trust. I personally trust my numbers on him this week.
On Benson.
Okay.
I
like.
But Mox is smarter than me. He doesn't.
I just worry you're going to get like probably 7 points at minimum from Benson. I don't know that the ceiling is there today. So depending on what the rest of the roster looks like, I think that might play into the decision, because if you just need like points, it's one thing. If you need a big explosive game, I don't see it in the cards. I think it's way more likely someone like Harrison Whaley gets it.
Yeah. And I'm actually in position where I'm just kind of this one flex spot. I'm kind of shooting for the moon. I have Vaki in right now again, because like what Nick said earlier, he's just so explosive, but I'm in a good spot. I have, I had Marcus Carroll go the other night. great game. I had Salter go the other night, great game. So starting out the week, I'm sitting at almost 60 points. So I'm in a good spot. So I can kind of shoot for the moon in this one spot. So
yeah, it is a good spot. And Vaki, I think, I don't know. I just don't trust the number of touches. I don't know if what he's done the last couple of weeks is sustainable. I think he's a great player. He's explosive. He can run. He can catch. But against Oregon, tougher matchup, and I'm just not sure he's going to be able to put up the big plays every time he touches the football like he has the last couple of weeks.
I'm right there with you.
Okay. Good deal. Two others, quick questions. We don't have to get into too much detail, but so I have Zion Chris for Louisiana, but then Felix was just on and he was saying, hey, you got to talk about Malik Murphy. And I did pick him up this week, but being such an unknown, I just don't trust playing it for at least this first week until I have something to see. Would you even consider playing Malik Murphy over Chris?
Chris plays South Alabama today, right? It's kind of
South Alabama.
Tough match.
I think I would actually play Murphy over Chris, mostly because I think that South Alabama game could be a tough matchup. Chris has not been as good the last couple of weeks as he was to start the year, so that's my concern there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think I would probably lean Murphy as well, especially if this is in the situation that you mentioned earlier where you had, a little bit of room to play with. Chris probably gives you no, I don't even think he gives you a better floor. I think I would lean Murphy this week.
All right. Well, I may make that change. All right. Last question. And Nick, you'll appreciate this one. I'm in Thor's 50 teamer. So in buy hell, got some injuries. I'm not even digging the bottom of the barrel. I'm licking the bottom of the barrel. That's how bad it is. So I got one flex spot. I have Carnell Tate, Ohio State. So if Emeka doesn't play, I got Tate, or, and this is god awful, Omega Blake for South Carolina. Now, Leggette's coming back, but Blake should be the 2 wide receivers since Juice Wells and Brown are out. Would you go Tate or Blake? Now this is bottom of the barrel stuff here.
Yeah, there are some tough decisions in that league usually. If you're in a spot where you think you're going to need to shoot for the highest ceiling, I think I would side with Tate on the chance that Ibuka is just either not going to end up playing or is just as severely limited as he looked on video the last time we saw him. But Mox probably would be a better source on Blake's upside.
I would go Blake. I actually expected Ibuka to play today. So, and I know Blake will be running routes against the Texas A&M secondary. That is quite bad.
I have Blake in there now, and I think I'm going to roll with it too. So, all right. Well, guys, appreciate taking my call, and have a good day. Good luck to you guys in your leagues.
Good luck to you too. Appreciate it.
All right. And yeah, we're going to go right into that video from Mike. So let's see who our Devy team, our future draft prospects, who they like here this week.
What is going on, Devy family? It's Mike V here. It's not Corey P. They keep inviting me back. I don't know if I'm doing something right or this is just one big long joke, but you're stuck with me, and we're far enough into the season now where we know what the top of the draft class look like. I want to look at that next group afterwards and talk about some of these late breakouts coming up. Looking into the future a little bit for Devy. Let's get it. Hey, let's talk about the running back class. We know it's terrible, but we have a big matchup. Wisconsin versus Ohio State. Braylon Allen last week had, I mean, a usual Braylon Allen game. 29 attempts, 145 yards, 1 touchdown. Luke Fickell, Phil Longo, this air raid offense that we thought we were going to get, the dairy raid, they threw out the window. They said, screw it. Let's go back to what we were doing before. Just give it to Braylon Allen. And he looks phenomenal. 5 rushing attempts over 10 yards last week against an Illinois defense with a defensive tackle that has a first-round grade from a lot of us here on the NFL team. Now he gets to play against Ohio State. Let's see if he can build off that. And, he's breaking some ankles out there on some routes. I'm just saying. Let's see if Trey Henderson on the Ohio State Buckeyes running back can get back to being healthy, get back to playing. He did a lot his freshman year. He's shown some flashes this year. I need him to keep doing it. I just need to have that confidence in his running back class. These are the top 2 guys probably for me coming out. Let's look at that running back group. But heading over to another deeper name, a guy that I'm looking for hopefully hitting the portal in the offseason, it's going to be Kadarius Callaway, running back from Old Dominion. Once a Alabama commit, he was an athlete. He was last year's class, and they said he wasn't ready for it. That's like the word on the street. He was playing cornerback. He didn't really want to do that. Went to go play running back. Went the JUCO route. Now he's at Old Dominion, and he's been crushing it. 10 attempts for 236 yards and 3 touchdowns against Marshall. 13 attempts for 93 yards against Southern Miss. 13 for 104 against App State. Now he gets to play against the number 25 ranked JMU team. Let's see him keep building onto it. The way the running back landscape is now in college, I think a lot of teams are going to be dipping into that portal, and he might get some, that quote-unquote tampering phone calls telling him to get in the portal and come on over to the Power 5. And we always love a guy taking that big step upward. Heading on over to Texas, Malik Murphy makes his start. Now, I'm sure the guys have probably talked about it by now, but again, Malik Murphy in the spring, 9 for 13, 165 yards, 1 touchdown. He looked good. His freshman analysis by a lot of us here is just that he has an absolute cannon on his arm. I'm looking at Xavier Worthy. He's been fine. Fine's understatement. He's been good. Quinn Ewers needs to get a little bit more developed here, but if we can unleash Malik Murphy, get some nice deep shots on going over from Murphy to Worthy, I'm all about it. I can't wait to watch Texas. This is, let's just clarify this is his showing. Malik Murphy's got to hit the portal this year. Quinn's probably coming back. He's gonna have the opportunity to up his game with another program, start for them. So these next couple of games for him while Quinn's getting healthy, this is very important for his future. Heading on over to a very deep name, wide receiver, true freshman, gotta go deep. This is Mike Valor here. Jace Brown, a Kansas State wide receiver here. 5'11", 175 pounds, true freshman, 3-star wide receiver at 195 in the composite out of Florida. He was a 2-way player in 3A. No, it's not the top end, but, it's still 3A Florida. Over 900 yards receiving in that season, but also 10 interceptions on defense. Look, he got some play last week against TCU, 4 for 6 for 88 yards and 1 touchdown, and his footwork was fast. I'm talking about like Zay Flowers type quick. I mean, it was pretty impressive. He's number 1 in the depth chart. Kansas State put him as a starting wide receiver for this upcoming matchup against Houston today. Go ahead and watch true freshman getting ball thrown from him from Avery Johnson and Will Howard. KSU still an exciting football team. Let's see what the true freshman can do for them. And again, I said I want to look at that next tier players, right? So these wide receiver class, like we know who the top is. It's the Ohio State duo. You got Neighbors, you got Keon Coleman, you got Romo Dunze. I know I'm missing one, Devontae Walker, but there's another group there, right? The senior group. Senior Bowl's around the corner. First invites go out this week. When you guys are watching games today, think to yourself, which seniors can elevate their game the most at the Senior Bowl? There's always that group of guys that we're looking at to elevate themselves. They want to get a better look on a micro level. And why? I'm sorry. Why is this important? You're asking, why is this guy talking about the Senior Bowl? The last 4 years, every single senior drafted day 1, day 2 got a Senior Bowl invite, with one exception. Tyquan Thornton from the Patriots got drafted 2nd round. But besides that, Zay Flowers got an invite. He chose not to take it. He went to the Shrine Bowl. I think some money was involved there. But outside of Tyquan, every single senior drafted day 1, day 2 came from the Senior Bowl, had a Senior Bowl invite. So take a look at it. Watch guys. The guys I'm looking for, Jamari Thrash from Louisville. Jalen McMillan, he's not healthy yet. I still think he's got a lot more in him. Xavier Wheeler of Colorado playing against UCLA. Elijah Badger, a nice gadgety guy playing for Arizona State. Torrey Horton, Malachi Corley, the top 2 G5 receivers. Got to keep an eye on those guys. Torrey Horton of KSU, Malachi Corley of WKU. And I think you got a nice pair of slot specialists in Xavier Restrepo from Miami, and then across the same state, Ricky Pearsall from Florida. Look, this is where the seniors make their money at the Senior Bowl. Invites start going out. Got to keep your eye out for these elevation guys. And look, guys, that wraps it up. That's it. Hey, don't forget to check in at 7 o'clock. Kentucky plays Tennessee, and let's not forget our geography. Kentucky's always on top.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Let's do an injury check-in here, guys. Let's check in some names starting to trickle in. Players not warming up. Players probably out today. A few that we can just toss out here if anybody has any comments on them. Igbuka likely to play today, it sounds like, or at least an hour ago. That was the news, so seems likely to hold there. Grayson McCall is out today for Coastal Carolina. If you were starting any Coastal Carolina players for whatever reason, might start to rethink that. Noah Fafita starting again this week for Arizona. He's been pretty good for them. We mentioned Pat Garwo, the Boston College running back, is out. Travion Henderson supposedly back for Ohio State. Johnny Wilson was not warming up. So if you got Johnny Wilson, this could be another Keon Coleman week. He's been performing pretty well there with Wilson out. Nate Noel in for Appalachian State. So that's good news there for folks with him. Any other injury updates here, guys?
Just saw about 10 minutes ago that Marcus Major is out for Oklahoma today. And we'd mentioned, Mox had mentioned that sounds like some flu has been working its way around the Oklahoma roster. It didn't, according to the beat reporters, they do a great job, release a list of who's spotted in warmups, and Major was really the only name of note that I saw, but certainly something to continue to keep an eye on.
Chris, any other ones that you're kind of monitoring? I know the Wake Forest news sounds like we have a Mitch Griffiths playing today. Anything else standing out to you here this morning?
I don't think so. Bryson Daly might be playing for Army. I saw him warming up. I don't know if we got confirmation that he's in yet, but that he affects the spread. So you've seen Army kind of hit 10.5, which tells me he's probably going. Okay.
All right.
And he's a fantasy option too. He's been pretty good this year.
Who does Army have today?
UMass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everyone's an option when you play UMass. It's always a get right week there. All right, let's jump into some of those bets for today, guys. Nick and Chris, we ask for your best plays every single week. We've already given out that Mary Mac plus 3.5 against St. Francis. Has that moved yet at all?
Down to three. Yeah. So our group here seems to perhaps have made a little bit of an impact there. So we've turned it into a little bit of a thing with the Ivy League here. I'm a little bit shaken. My Ivy League confidence is a little bit shaken. Things have gotten a little weird. Last week specifically, the underdogs were huge, and most of our projections were on the favorite. And my projections for the most part have been on unders. However, I do see a little bit of value, and this is another, maybe Mox and I are just butting heads this week. He was looking at the Yale Columbia under, I think. I'm leaning toward over for 41. So that'll be the Ivy League play for me this week. Everything else, I'm just a little feeling a little off, quite honestly. But for FBS numbers, I
can get you 37.5, by the way, for that over.
Okay, well, let's do it. So I don't see a whole lot of edge there. My projection's like 43. But because we've been on under so much with those projections, I feel like that maybe I can increase that level of value. So yeah, we'll do 37.5 as the official there. For FBS numbers, and please feel free to help me out with anything that is more up to date. But two where all three of our projection models, I won't go into the whole spiel, but when they line up on a favorite that has shown some good value this year, FAU was one of those. So we already put that in the win column this week. If you were in the Discord or a C2C Winning Edge member and get our projections each week. Two others that line up pretty well for those this week are Nebraska, and it was -2.5 officially. I think I saw a -1 earlier today, so that one might be moving against us. Okay, so we'll go with Nebraska -1, even if there's not necessarily a great sign there. Just the way the projections shake out, not that we love Nebraska in any sense, but feel that they should be. This is a winnable game. This is a game that Nebraska, in my opinion, and the numbers agree, should win this game today against Purdue. South Alabama, this one has moved the other way. I think it was 10.5 when we released it officially. It's now 11.5, or it was earlier this morning, against Louisiana, right? That's who they're playing today. Our numbers love South Alabama, have all season, and they've done pretty well for us in this spot before. And then one that to me just hit my eye really strangely, but the projections, all three, have Eastern Michigan favored to beat Western Michigan. That game is at home, right, in Ypsilanti. These two teams, are evenly matched. I might argue that I would trust Eastern Michigan a little bit more, and especially at home. I think that this is a game that EMU should win. So I'm going to go with the Eastern Michigan money line against Western Michigan today.
All right. Chris, what do you like this week?
I almost fought Nick twice. I'm only going to fight him once.
Wow. So we're going to guarantee a loss. No.
I really like Purdue. I watched that Nebraska game last week. They have a lot of injuries, Snow is in the forecast. I don't think it's going to snow during game time. Snow is in the forecast, which concerns me a little bit backing Purdue. But I just think Nebraska suffered a little bit too much, in my opinion. So I'm on the Purdue side of things. They gave it out this morning when it was 2.5 to our Discord. So there's a chance for a middle there at 2. So, fingers crossed there. But I like Purdue. The one that I was going to give out, I wasn't confident enough because I like Chris Creighton, but I think Western Michigan is the right side there. It's 3, so I don't want to lay it, but I am a little skeptical. I don't usually fight you, but I felt strongly about the Purdue one.
Hey, we've been banging heads this morning, so I don't know. One of us is going to have a good week.
Yeah.
One of us is going to have a very bad week, maybe.
So I like a handful of favorites. There is an Army -9.5 out there at Bet 365. I love it. I think they're going to take TMS, and it looks like Bryson Daly's going to go, and that's a big difference for the offense if Daly's going. So give me Army to cover that 9.5. If it's 10.5, I'm not touching it. Just heads up. I like Oregon too. I think Utah is somewhat fraudulent, and I know it's tough to lay points on the road in Utah, but I just think Oregon's that much better. I really do. I think I made this game 8.5, and that's like I have a pretty big adjustment for Utah home field advantage. Like one of the most significant with that. Like if it was on a neutral field, I'd have Oregon 10.5. Or sorry, 11.5. I think I don't have that number in front of me. So yeah, I like Oregon here, and then New Mexico. I picked against them last week. I picked Hawaii. So jokes on me. That clown stuff. But I'm going back to New Mexico. And I'm laying it with them. Oh, I don't even have to lay it. I can get a pick. Just kidding. I think they're going to beat Nevada. Nevada played a good defensive game last week, but I don't think their defense is actually that good. I think San Diego State is like a quit team. So I like New Mexico State, and you could get it at even money. So, or not New Mexico. I do like New Mexico State, but I also like New Mexico, the Lobos. I think their offense is playing okay, and I think that Nevada is not as good as we saw last week. So I'm on, rocking with New Mexico in a game that I think that they should be favored in.
All right, well, there are our best picks for the day. And then let's talk some of the big games. We've got three big games here today, I think. So those are going to be the ones that we focus on here. Let's bring on Barnabas, as we always do, to cover some of these games from a draft perspective. Barnabas, how's it going today?
Hey, not too bad. How about yourself?
Oh, we are just doing great here. Getting close to kickoff, about 9 minutes left. So keep that in mind, boys, as you're talking. Just throwing that out there. All right, Oregon at Utah. Chris just talked about it. 6.5 is the spread right now. That game kicks off at 3 p.m. Eastern. Barnabas, what are you looking for in this game from a draft, prospect perspective?
Yeah, so we all love Troy Franklin. And in Nick's player projections, we have Troy Franklin at wide receiver 4, I believe, is what I saw. But I don't think he's going to have that big of a role, both in terms of game script and because he's going up against a guy in Zemiah Vaughn, who's one of the bigger corners in the Pac-12. And so, Troy Franklin, I have him comped to like a Terrence Williams at the next level, which, my comparisons are generally a little bit tempered, so take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, Zemiah Vaughn leads the team in passes defended and has the most tackles amongst cornerbacks for Utah. So, Utah is a very strong team up the middle, but I think Troy Franklin will kind of be used as a little bit of a decoy in order to get that edge on the line.
All right, and we know where Chris is leaning on this one with his pick, so I'm going to ask Nick and Colin, who do you like here today, Oregon at Utah?
Yeah, this could have very easily been a best bet scenario. It is one of those where all three of our models agree on the favorite. I'm a little gun shy because we were on USC against Utah last week. We were on Oregon against Washington State last week, and didn't work out. But this. My projected point spreads would be between 9.5 and 12, so definitely on the Oregon side.
Colin, what do your numbers say?
My numbers, all vibes.
The button.
All vibes only. I'm going with Oregon here in this one too. I think they're just a little bit better of a team overall, offensively and defensively, a solid team. So I think under a touchdown is a good line. So I'm going to take Oregon.
I like Oregon as well. So that sounds like a clean sweep here for the group. We've talked a little bit about this game from a player health perspective. Duke at Louisville, and it sounds like there's some pieces that are questionable on either side. Riley Leonard tried to come back last week, left again injured. Louisville got maybe bringing some guys back here. Jawar Jordan specifically. Game kicks off at 3:30. Louisville is a 6.5 point favorite. Chris, who do you like in this game?
So I really liked it at 4. Actually gave it out again in our Discord. And I still think I like it under touchdown. Two honestly kind of good defenses. Louisville secondary is a little bit better than I think people realize. And without Riley Leonard, or Riley Leonard with legs, I think I prefer Louisville at. There's 6s out there. I'd probably still play that, but even at 6.5.
Nick?
The projections are all on the Duke side. My level of confidence is not particularly high given the injury situations, as you mentioned, but I've got a lot of respect for Mike Elko. The job that he's done there and that Duke defense, I think, is pretty good. So I don't hate that I'm on the Duke side, but I kind of wish I was on the Louisville side.
Colin?
I think Louisville ultimately ends up winning this game, but the fact that this line moved to 6.5 puts me on the Duke side here. I think Duke's defense is really good, and I'm hoping Riley Leonard, even a hobbled Riley Leonard, if he goes, can put up enough points to keep this game competitive. So I'm going to go with Duke against the spread.
I think Duke wins outright. Barnabas, what do you like in this game from a draft perspective?
Yeah, so with Riley Leonard out, and even with Riley Leonard, we talk about it, Duke's offense runs around that, is basically the focal point is that rushing offense, right? And they have a few players there, so I'm just going to call it the Duke rushing game. And versus a guy that may sound familiar, but is not the guy you're thinking of, in Devin Neal, the safety for Louisville, right? He's a 210-pound safety, technically. He really plays that overhang box safety type role. Maybe you can think of like a lighter Baron Browning for Ohio State back in the day kind of role. But he's going to be pivotal against that rushing offense. And then honorable mention also here, we're looking at Jamari Thrash as like coming up, in terms of NFL prospects here. To my understanding, Duke plays a boundary corner, field corner style. And so, and Jamari Thrash only lines up on the right side. I don't know if anyone else ever noticed that. And so he's probably going to go up against some combination of Joshua Pickett and Chandler Rivers. Duke has a pretty small secondary. None of their corners are above 6 foot. And so Jamari Thrash luckily isn't huge. And so we'll see how that one goes. I think Thrash may be able to expose some of the undersized play from Duke's secondary.
All right, last game here, Georgia, Florida. You said that they're not allowed to call it the cocktail, the world's largest cocktail party or whatever anymore. They've gotten rid of that name.
Like a decade ago or longer. They tried to phase it out and it has not phased.
Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, it's a fun name. Why would you? Georgia, 14-point favorites in this one. Barnabas, I'll come to you first in this one. I mean, this is probably some higher end prospects that we're looking at in this game.
Yeah, so Mike mentioned Ricky Pearsall, the senior wide receiver for Florida, and he's been clearly the most experienced receiving option on that team. Mike has him as a pure slot. I think, he's listed at 6'1". He might be able to have some other roles at the next level as well. He probably draws Javon Bullard, who is the safety for Georgia. He's definitely the smallest secondary member of that Georgia defense. And so, Pearsall has more the same number of receptions as the next two leading receivers for Florida combined. And so that he's going to be the focal point. So I'm assuming the smallest guy draws the smallest guy on the other side. And so I'm looking at that. And then honorable mention here, we thought Michigan transfer RJ Moten was going to be huge for that Florida secondary. He was this big, bulky safety that was supposed to do really well and match up against those Utah tight ends in week 1 and etc. But it's actually been freshman Jordan Castell that I think he's like second on the team in tackles. And so he probably draws that Georgia tight end. I think we had Delp on there. But yeah, that's obviously a big role in that offense. And so we'll see how the freshman handles it. And he's really getting on that draft radar a little early with how he's playing this season.
All right. Thank you, Barnabas. Let's pick this game. Colin, who are you picking in this one?
I'm going to take Georgia. I think that they're just a better team. I picked against them against the spread a couple times, and I don't think it's worked out for me. So not going to make that mistake here. I'm going to go with Georgia.
Nick?
So this is a similar setup numbers wise to the Duke-Louisville game. Clear favorite in Georgia, but just couldn't quite get to 14. So I'm on Florida to cover. I actually think that Georgia is very vulnerable and has a good chance to lose at some point in the next 3-4 weeks. Not sure it happens today, but this is a losable game, so I don't hate being on the Florida side.
Chris?
I have Georgia written down, but I'm going to go Florida. Think that the Georgia allows
that's my move.
Georgia allows some explosive rushes. I think Florida might be able to take a little bit of advantage. Graham-Mertz is playing a little bit better, so I think they can keep it within 2 scores.
I'm going to take Georgia. I actually think they might double the line. I think they might beat them by 4 touchdowns today. I think this Florida team is just really bad, but it could just be me. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's show, guys. Thanks. Well, actually, real quick, we've got a minute left, Will is telling me. So I just want real quick. Who do you guys like in this Tennessee-Kentucky game? Tennessee's 3.5-point favorite. This should be a pretty good one. Colin, who do you like?
I like Tennessee.
Nick?
Kentucky, wrong team favorite.
Chris?
Who do I have written down?
You have Tennessee written down.
Okay, Tennessee.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, thank you guys for hopping in here with us this morning. Good luck to your fantasy teams this morning. Good luck on your bets. This is the Tailgate brought to you by Campus2Canton.